Hey Writer Rebels, so pre-orders, are they good, bad, or ugly? Keep watching to find out. Hey everyone, it's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author, YouTuber, and storyteller, and today I'm here to talk about pre-orders and whether or not you should do pre-orders. Well, the simple answer, it's really up to you. And I guess we could end the video, but I do have a little bit more to say on the topic. There are good reasons to have pre-orders, and there's also good reasons not to do pre-orders, but it's really up to the person, how they work, and a few other factors. So I will definitely go into those. Before we get started, however, I want to thank everybody for coming back and watching my videos week after week. I really appreciate all of the love that everybody keeps giving me every week, and I've noticed that we have a few new subscribers, so I would like to say thank you very much for subscribing. And if you aren't a subscriber, you can always be one. It's super simple. Just hit that subscription bar and the notification bell below this video or any other video of mine that you're watching, and while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button to let YouTube know this is something worth watching, and we can work on building our community even bigger. So pre-orders. What is a pre-order? Well, this is when your book goes on sale before the actual release date. Traditional publishers use pre-orders, indie publishers use pre-orders, and some do it with very high success rates. However, there's also a lot of authors who do pre-orders who really don't get a lot of turnaround from them. So should you bother? Should you put the time and effort into creating a pre-order? Well, honestly, it's kind of up to you. And this is something that you can obviously play with. If you are releasing more than one book, you can try doing one with a pre-order, try doing one without, and see what happens. But from my experience, I have done pre-orders a few times, and I've had a couple of different experiences with it. So I wanted to discuss both the pros and the cons of having a pre-order, because it does sound like it would definitely be all pro since sales are definitely sales, but there are things that you do need to take into account when you are considering putting up a pre-order. Ready to go? All right, let's do it. All right, so let's start with the easy one. Most people are going to think that sales are sales, so pre-orders definitely make sense. The longer your book can be on sale, the longer you can hype it up, the better it's going to be for you. And that is definitely going to be the first pro of having pre-orders, and that is to increase the visibility of your book. So obviously, when you are releasing a book, you want to hype it up. You want as many people to buy it as possible. When you put a book on pre-order, it is one more thing that you can definitely hype up about your book. Just like having a cover reveal or a title reveal or something like that. It's one more thing to get your audience excited about. So it definitely helps build hype for your books. Plus, it keeps the book visible on the retailers all that much longer. So when you set up on a pre-order on Apple or Amazon or wherever you're going to set that up, that book is now showing in their list of books, in their catalog of books. If somebody were to search for something in that particular topic, let's say you're writing a soccer romance. If somebody is looking for soccer romance, they're going to be able to see that your book is coming out in a month, 2 months, a year. And if it's something that they're interested in, they could definitely pre-order it now, or they can just try to remember it later. So this definitely gives you more visibility on those sites because people can start seeing it now, not when the book comes out. That way you don't miss out on people who might have been interested in purchasing your book. And that leads into the second benefit, and that is the fact that people can purchase the book right away, and there's a link to do so. So this can be very important because a lot of people will forget. You can push your book as many times as you want. Oh, I have this book coming out. Until somebody actually purchases the book, they haven't purchased the book. So when you're hyping up your book, you do want to have somewhere that they can go and immediately buy that book. So for instance, when I was dealing with my first release, it was with a small press and it was an e-first publisher. So I really wanted those first sales to be massive. I wanted it to be a big deal. Plus it was my debut, so obviously I was invested in that. However, when I was trying to hype up the book before the pre-order happened, it was very difficult to keep people interested because they wanted to, where can I go to buy it? Where can I go to do this? And I couldn't tell them anything because there wasn't a place for them to go. Once I got into that pre-order period, it was a lot easier to close that sale because there was somewhere that people could immediately go on their phone or on their tablet or their computer, wherever they were, and immediately buy that book. So having that link is super duper important because it helps you close the sale a little bit easier. This leads us to our third benefit, and these for the people who are writing series. In indie publishing, there are a lot of people who do write standalones, but series are very prevalent, and there's a reason for that. It's because people like to binge read, like Netflix, like Crave, like Disney Plus. They like to start in a world and stay there. So when people are reading through your series, and even if it isn't an actual series, maybe it's a standalone, they just want to read more books from you. How many times have you done that? Seen an author, read a book by them, and then just wanted to read their entire backlist? When you go to do that, having a pre-order link in your books that you have will take them to your new release and they can pre-order it right away. Just like in the second benefit, it's going to close that sale a little bit sooner, because if your book isn't coming out for 6 or 8 months, they could have moved on to another author by then, or another series, or something else that they've been binging. However, if they've liked books 1, 2, and 3, and there's a pre-order link for book 4, they could pre-order that book right now, and then it's going to show up on their Kindle or their Nook or their iPhone months later, and they can jump back into that world like nothing happened. This can really, really help with read-through through series, especially if the series isn't completed. However, you can also leverage standalones by having that link if people really enjoy your writing and really just want to read more from you, which is the hope of any writer. The next reason pre-orders can do really well is because they tend to get special treatment. They get treated as new releases a whole lot longer. Not only does it get treated as a pre-order on most of the retailer sites, and then it gets to be a new release for a while too. So you get to have that longer new release period, which definitely helps with discoverability. And there are certain retailers that really do promote pre-orders. For example, with Apple, it is not uncommon where there are authors who will only put the pre-order up on Apple for a long period of time, and Apple will reward them by promoting that pre-order because it is exclusive to Apple. There are lots of things you can do with those pre-orders that can really help your discoverability and keep you a little bit more visible for a little bit longer, other than just being on the site. In a prior release, I did a very long pre-order for my book Keeper of Shadows because I had a BookBub earlier in the year. I did really well on the wide platforms with my pre-order because it had been up for so long. I didn't really promote that book very hard while it was on pre-order, but when my next release came out and it was a much shorter pre-order period and I was pushing really, really hard, I still did better on the longer pre-order on all of those wide sites. So that extra discoverability can help bring in new readers that you wouldn't have encountered anywhere else. The next reason that would be very useful to have a pre-order is so that you can book promotions. There's a lot of promotion sites that require you to have a link for your book. If you do not have a pre-order up, you're not going to have a link for your book until the book is live. So it is difficult to book promotions if you want to book like a newsletter blast, if you pay for it, or various other things where you want them to be promoting your books. So if you want them to be able to do that, you need to provide a link. Some will let you sign up ahead of time and provide the link later, but if you want stuff for release day or release week, it's going to be very difficult to do without a link for your book. So this can become very, very important if you rely on outside promotion for your books. If you're not using some of those services, then this may not apply to you. But if this is something that you're interested in doing or even considering it, then having that pre-order link set up is going to make things a whole lot simpler. And speaking of promotions, pre-orders are also very useful if you are interested in trying to hit a list. So one of the most popular ones for this is the USA Today Bestseller list. And if you want to hit that bestseller list, you usually need around a minimum of 5,000 sales in 1 week. That's a lot to accomplish, and a lot of authors will be able to do that with the readership that they have. And 5,000, depending on the week, can be low and not even enough to make the top 150. So if you are striving to hit a list, then pre-orders can be super, super useful because you usually have about a year or so on all of the websites to push that pre-order, and all of those sales will count on the day of release, as well as anything for your release week. So if you have a lot of pre-orders and you have a very successful release week, you have a chance of making one of those lists, which is definitely just a feather in your cap. Some people have more success with that than others, but if it's something that you're interested in, a pre-order can definitely help get you there. Not a guarantee, but can definitely help. So with all those pluses to pre-orders, why the heck wouldn't you do one? Well, there's a lot of really good reasons why authors choose not to use pre-orders, and some of them can be very, very important, and more important than sales, believe it or not. The first one, speaking of sales, is that they are not guaranteed sales. Just because a reader decides to do a pre-order, their credit card is not charged until release day, until the book is physically released. So there's a lot of situations where if authors are setting up pre-orders for a really long period of time, then somebody's credit card could expire, they could forget about it, their credit card could be maxed out, they could lose that credit card and it's no longer applicable. So by the time that the sale actually comes to happen on release day, it doesn't actually go through because that person's credit card is no longer valid for whatever reason. They can also cancel a pre-order with no problems. This really doesn't make much of a difference because technically readers can return books on a lot of the websites, which is a little devastating in some cases, especially when some readers will read your books, but that's a whole other video. But just because you have, let's say, 50 pre-orders, 5 pre-orders, 500 pre-orders, doesn't mean that that's actually going to be the number that's going to hit on release day, because there are some that are not going to go through. The second reason some people choose not to do pre-orders is because some people just don't like pre-orders. Remember how I said before that when you are trying to promote your book and you are trying to get somebody to purchase your book, it's so much easier to get them to purchase if there's a pre-order link than if there's not a pre-order link? That is 100% true. However, it also goes one step further. People are more interested in being able to buy the book now. It is much easier to convince somebody to purchase your book if it is live than it is to convince somebody to pre-order your book, than it is to convince somebody to remember to buy your book when there's a link available. So pre-orders are easier than not having a link, but a live book is still way better for conversion than a pre-order. You can ask any author who does ads. They typically do better when the book is live than when the book is on pre-order. Some people do not want to commit to a pre-order for various different reasons. They don't want to get hit on a credit card in 3 months when they forget about it. They don't want to read a book that has no reviews or no social proof. They want to wait until that book comes out and see what people think about it. Or they just don't feel like dealing with it later. There could be various different reasons of why people don't want to pre-order, but a live book will definitely sell better than a pre-order book in most cases. Another reason not to do pre-orders is because it kills your rank. So if you are somebody that is very concerned about rank, and when I talk about rank, it's usually on Amazon. Amazon is the one that most people are concerned with rank, especially because that is the one we see the most. That's where we see the #1 bestseller flag in this category. You want to be #1 in the Amazon store. There's all those things that people are trying to do. The reason it affects your rank is because Amazon will take those into consideration as pre-orders come in. So let's say you have a year-long pre-order. Every single time somebody pre-orders, it's actually going to affect your rank on that day. So when the book actually releases, there isn't apparently some impact that your pre-orders will have, but it's not going to be like 50 brand new sales on the day of release because they've already accounted for that in your rank over the past year. And the longer your pre-order is, the longer of a distance it's probably going to be between pre-orders unless you are an author that is selling relatively regularly all the time. If you know you're going to be able to bring those sales in, then it might not impact your rank that much. But if you're somebody that, isn't going to have gangbusters style pre-orders and you're probably only going to get a handful or maybe a couple double digits, then it's really going to impact your rank as opposed to those people buying those books on release day and boosting you right up. There is the thought of bank over rank. I don't know who came up with this. It is something that I've seen online. I think it's a great line. It is not mine. But basically the thought on that one is, hey, I would rather sell 50 books than be #1 on my release day because I'm in this for a business and I would rather, sell those books, get to those readers and make the money than risk it all for the release. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you are hitting those lists on Amazon, it's going to increase your visibility. So there is a possibility that hitting #1 in the store and hitting #1 on a lot of their lists is going to help drive more sales. And you are going to lose that benefit by setting up a pre-order. So that one's really kind of depends on what your strategy strategy is. A lot of Kindle Unlimited authors will be impacted a little bit more with the rank thing because they are only on one platform. So they really want to rank well so that people are going to want to read their books in Kindle Unlimited and they can get those page reads. But it can have the same impact for a wide author that's on all platforms if this is something that's important to them. So that's something you just need to determine if this is something that means something to you, because if it does, you might want to skip the pre-order. One little trick that some authors use to get around that is they will actually put their books up on pre-order on all of the wide platforms and not put it up on Amazon until much closer to the release date. That's really up to you, and I do find with some readers they get a little bit frustrated in the sense that they can see this book up on Apple, but they can't purchase it for their Kindle, which is what they really want. So that's just a decision that you need to make as an author if it's worth it for you or if that's something you want to do. The next reason not to do pre-orders would be the commitment. So let's say you put all the books in a series up for pre-order, and then you find out that the series is not doing particularly well, or you're not particularly fond of writing said series and have decided to cut it early, or you are going to make changes, or you just really don't want to write those books anymore and you want to write something else. Well, you've already put them up there. So you can always cancel, and those pre-orders will be canceled for those readers, and you can make those choices. However, if you get into the habit of constantly canceling your pre-orders on people, they're going to start getting a little disappointed, and you could affect your readership. So this is really, yet again, another choice as an author that you need to make. So this is something you need to weigh your pros and cons on, but it's definitely something that can put a little bit more stress on you as an author because you are committed to writing those books because you kind of put it out there in the world. It's not totally disastrous. You can always get out of it. It's not that there's somebody behind you forcing you to write this book. But by putting it out into the universe, you have kind of made that commitment to your readers that those are the books that are coming and the dates that they're coming for, and how much you think that impacts your integrity as an author. And the last reason not to do pre-orders, which I find is probably the most important reason that people really, really, really need to consider, because I have been in this boat more than once, is it is stressful. It is so stressful if you are not ready for your pre-order. So you have deadlines for a pre-order. Your book is coming out July 31st. Awesome for you. Your pre-order does not go up July 31st. Your book needs to be handed in before that. And depending on the retailer, it needs to be several days before that. Amazon is actually one of the shortest, with usually I think it's like 3 or 4 days. Apple is usually about 10 days. And draft to digital, I think, is almost 14. And if you are releasing around the Christmas season, pretty much from the week before Black Friday on to January, they account for vacation time in there. So they're going to want your books even earlier than that. So by planning to have your release on July 31st, that means you need to have the book pretty much done, locked and loaded by the middle of July. So if you're planning this into your schedule, it might not be a big deal. So if you've got your book finished at the end of June, you've got tons of times to put it up on your retailers, and no harm, no foul. There's also a lot of authors out there who will not put up a pre-order until they have a book done and ready to release. So when they put up their pre-order, they are actually putting up the final book and then just moving on to the next project. That can be a very healthy way to do it. However, depending on how quickly you are releasing and how fast you want books to get out, then there are a lot of authors, myself included, who will write to the deadline, and they will get emails from all of these websites on a daily basis telling them when their book needs to be put up. And if anything goes awry in your writing plan, it can really throw you for a loop, because say you plan to be done, everything is supposed to be finished by the end of June. This is not going to be a problem. It gives me 2 weeks grace before I even have to have everything up, and it's going to release on July 31st. And then your proofreader cancels on you. Okay, now you're scrambling to do that. Or you're going through edits and the book's not working out the way you want it to. Or you get sick. You are the writer. Like, unless you have ghostwriters, there's nobody who can do it for you. So if any of those things were to happen, then that can really push your schedule off. And depending on how much room you gave yourself, you could be getting really, really tight to the deadline, and it can stress you out. And there's a lot of authors out there as well who, when they're stressed out, find it difficult to write. So if you are not good with deadlines, then setting that deadline for yourself is going to stress you out. And if it's going to stress you out, you're not going to write as fast and you're not going to be as productive, which puts you into the position of possibly not meeting your deadline and perpetuates this awful, awful cycle. So what happens if you miss your pre-order? Well, if it's on Amazon, I believe you can miss it once, maybe, and you get a freebie. But then after that, if you ever miss a pre-order again, they will take away your pre-order privileges for a year. If you've sworn off pre-orders, I guess it really doesn't matter. The other retailers are not so bad about it. They will allow you to move your pre-order around, and that's okay. So there isn't really any harm on those retailers to move your pre-order around. And this is also one of the reasons why a lot of wide authors will put their books up wide on the other retailers and not on Amazon until the book is solid, because they know they can move those dates around. However, I recently polled a bunch of authors about making changes to your pre-order dates, moving them both up and moving them down, because there's also a big thing about putting all of your books out on pre-order for a year and then just pulling them back as they get finished. So you put it up for pre-order for 12 months and then decide after 6 months you've got the book done, so you're actually just going to release it now. This can cause some issues with readers, and I was interested in the answers from a lot of authors. Some of them didn't care, and some of them said they've actually gotten mail from readers that they were very disappointed, because what I mentioned before is that people are not charged for their pre-orders until the book is released. If you release the book 6 months early, then they are going to get charged for that pre-order 6 months prior to when they expected to. And depending on what their personal budget is, that could be a big deal, especially if maybe they do a lot of pre-orders, or maybe they have a very tight budget. So you could be impacting your readers by pulling them in. The other thing is too, if you are not meeting your pre-orders and people are expecting that book and it doesn't come out when it says it's supposed to come out, you could be dealing with angry readers from the other side of things because the book is just not ready when they expected it to. If you only have a very small readership, it might not impact people very much, but it just depends on how you want to present yourself as an author. If it's really, really important to you how you're perceived by your readers, then you're going to want to meet your deadlines, meet your commitments, and try to be as upfront and honest as possible. It happens. People miss deadlines all the time. I had to push a book for 2 weeks, and I felt terrible about it, but the world did not end. I still managed to get my pre-order out the 2 weeks later, and everything was okay. However, I did feel really, really horrible about it. And depending on who you are as an author and your personality type, it can have a huge toll on you to change those pre-order deadlines. So if you're an author that stresses out quite a bit or is a bit of a people pleaser, then pre-orders may not be the thing for you. Or you just need to make sure that you put enough time in your process to A, finish the book, or B, make sure that your book is completed or close enough to completed before you put up that pre-order, so that you are going to meet your deadline without stressing yourself out and without compromising the quality of your work. So that's all I've got about pre-orders. If you have any other questions, make sure you put it in the comments below, and I would love to hear from you. So if you have any other questions, or if there's something you'd like to see on this channel, please let me know and I will try to work it into the schedule. But until next week, this is me, Scarlett Kol. And if you would like to be a subscriber, make sure you're hitting that subscription box and the notification bell below this video, and hit the thumbs up while you're down there. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you all next week.